Hi guys, I'm Katie Room from parapsispress.com, where I review indie sci-fi and fantasy books. Welcome back to our book club. Previously, we've read through the sci-fi fantasy short stories in the first issue of Silence and Starsong. If you haven't had a chance yet, be sure to check those out. We had a lot of fun. And we also did just one episode of a book from the 90s that some of us, not Patrick, read as kids, and we revisited. So be sure to check that as well. Today, I'm just here with Patrick from Cave to the Cross, and we are looking at Shoot the Devil. This is a short story anthology edited by Eric Postma. Am I saying that right, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah. Guaranteed I'll butcher everybody's names at least once. So
I just had a comment on one of my book reviews that I do every year, and the person enjoyed my review of the Defenders of the West, but definitely commented that I had all the names wrong. That's why they call me a reader and not a talker. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Today we'll be looking at the foreword and the first story. The epigraph for this anthology is "Hail Mary, full of grace, punch the devil in the face," which is humorous and kind of sets the tone. This is likely to be a slightly more Catholic worldview, which not necessarily every author in this book is going to be Catholic, but the tone seems like it's going in that direction.
Yeah, well, which I think we'll talk about in the forward as well. There's a hint of that.
Yeah. And for me, like I've said many times, I don't need my stories to have perfect theology. Particularly with this genre, it's easy to see some of the exorcism tropes as their own kind of magic system. So it doesn't really bother me too much. But we will talk about it for sure. Okay.
Forward. And
Forward.
onward.
So in the forward, Eric Postma says, too often the modern world wants us to avoid confrontation, to pretend that evil doesn't exist, that the bad guy is always misunderstood, the hero of his own story. And he particularly condemns this mindset within the church, especially church leadership. And then he goes on to say, the truth is evil exists, demons are real. That's why we need these stories, to remind us that evil can and should be defeated. That it should and can be confronted head on. That sometimes, when face to face with a demon, the best response is to wrap a rosary around your fist and punch it square in the face. Then, just to be sure, you should shove a Winchester down its throat and finish the job. It isn't just satisfying, it's good, clean fun.
Correct. So there's the Catholicism coming out just a little bit. The rosary, the crucifix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of the stories that we read in Silence and Starsong would definitely fit in this anthology.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Have Ye Offered Unto Me is the one that I'm thinking of. He has a gun wrapped in a rosary and shoots. Like, literally in the face. It's like exactly what happens.
Yeah. Well, and I can't forget my favorite archangel in there. So
Yes.
Greek, Russian Orthodox, but adjacent.
Yeah.
The East-West schism of the church. That's outside my schism. I'm a protester, so I can form the alliance back together by being the common enemy. So what do you think about that idea of pretend evil doesn't exist. I think that might be true. That might have been true. I think now these days, um, it's almost an inverted moralism, and I'm stealing that from my pastor, where it's almost postmodernism, where before, it's the well, I'm not right and I'm not wrong, neither are you. We all exist on our own separate planes. But I think these days, the desire to condemn is high, and you can't do that without um, the religious element being there, and by that I mean the secular religious element, which is an oxymoron on purpose. Um, but it's without justification, it's without basis, and I won't go into my rant there on it has no foundation to call good good and evil evil. Um, but but uh, but I almost think that this was written this isn't written for today so much because there is now a desire to say evil does exist, but it just looks like all the things that I'm against.
Yeah, everything that we've traditionally understood to be evil is not, and we should embrace it and tolerate it. Uh, everything that particularly the church has stood against. Um, but it's not that there isn't evil completely. It's inverting it, right? Like you said.
We do have to realize that as Christians, we do believe in kind of the two forms of evil, right? There's an external force, which is personified in these stories a bit more on purpose, and that's the fun of the stories, and we want to read that. But there's the natural sin of man, the fallen nature that exists there, and those do play a little bit of role here. In what's brought out as well. Um, but having that outside influence is uh, uh, not considered any longer, right? So we're post Enlightenment people. We've discarded our our angels and demons, and we've just agreed on the points that we're no longer long for the world of fairy tales, and now we're in the realm of science, where humanity can cause the Earth's destruction with a couple degrees, but we can also control it through the fairy dust of taxes. That, of course, is realism in our modern world and not fairy tales. So we have that. So that outside the devil, angels, demons, the end times, the forces of good battling evil, and the archways of heavens, that definitely doesn't exist. But uh, people of different political ideologies, those are the bad ones, and so those are the ones that we can agree upon and carve out society against those people. So that's the okay evil to believe in,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't, you're excommunicated.
This is much more tangible, uh, clear cut good versus evil. And it's unfortunately not really like that. We can confidently say evil exists and should be resisted and fought, with and particularly within our own hearts.
Yes, yeah.
But the 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 literally shooting the enemy in the face is a, a an escapism.
Yeah, right. It's a thing we wish we could do
Yes.
for that purpose. Yes. Well, what about then the idea that the bad guy is always misunderstood, the hero of his own story? I know you have talked about that in a number of your shows, and I think that's it's almost an anti trope at this point to talk about that among the indie pub circles. You can't redeem your bad guy because of it's not even an overcorrection. It's a return to form. The subversion is not to subvert the subversion anymore, right? So if you have your bad guy who who just dies in the end from the good guy, and you're like, whoa, what a surprise. That's the subversion right now. So maybe we'll get there if we realize that the Marxists need money even in trad pub too.
It's really interesting, and we'll talk more about this because I think that the very first story does that a little bit. So I was I I was actually surprised by the first story, and so I'm interested to talk to you about that.
And here's my confession that will probably get me kicked off, at least returning from the show, is I do sometimes like a redeemed bad guy. I sometimes do like a bad guy who believes that he's the good guy in his own story. I do kind of like that. I the idea of the Punisher is always close to my heart as the anti-hero. I do like the fallen hero to sometimes root for, but not all the time. And uh, that's all we have now. So we always have, um, because he's not here. I have to say Gaston's always the good guy in the stories now. The Beast is clearly the bad guy. Belle's just the helpless person succumbed to the psychological torture, and Gaston's there to save the day. So
I'm offended on his behalf.
good, as well as everyone should be. But yeah, not all the time. Not all the time.
Not all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it is nice to just watch bad lose. It's fine.
I would say the foreword is very much in the spirit of the sort of indie zeitgeist with clear good versus evil, sort of simple violent solutions. And then like the book as a whole, right? That idea that you can tell a story with faith just as an element, open-handed. Hey, our character believes in stuff that's supernatural and big and and that's fine. Like we don't have to talk about it in a way that's like defending it for a chapter.
Right. Or pretending it doesn't exist, even though it clearly does. Like
Yeah.
all those R.R. Martin stories that seem to happen. Literally have characters rising from the dead, creating swords that catch on fire at the behest of a god. There seems to be supernatural elements in the world. But the atheists are the right ones. Am I right, guys? Yeah,
They're the
exactly.
smart ones.
It's Keanu Reeves' Constantine. Everyone wants the second one because everyone liked the first one because he exists in a world where you kind of understand the stakes of it. But Constantine as a person, it doesn't quite work because if you know that hell and evil exists and the devil is keeping you out of hell for his own person, then you start asking the questions of, does that really make sense?
That was probably my biggest beef with it.
But I did like when he put the cross in the water and it made the holy water. That was great.
Very convenient.
Yeah. But he also had the bless gun and the was it Helsing, right? From anime, one of my favorite animes because it was one of my first animes. Bless bullets sent from Alucard, which is Dracula backwards, and and he's the one that takes out the ghouls and the demons. The thing that goes bump in the night has something that's scared of him, and there's the blessed bullet vampire that's hunting them. So it's been done. It's been done, and I'm there for it.
Right. 100%. Oh, and of course, the emphasis on fun. It's
Yes.
not just satisfying. It's good, clean fun.
Yeah, it's not, you don't get you don't get to the end of the story and just feel like, well, maybe Nietzsche was right and nihilism is the way to go. Because this I'm super depressed.
Yeah. Or why did I read that? What was the point?
Yes.
Last thing before we get into the very first story, I am excited to dive into this anthology. I've read several of the indies in here, some other stuff. Declan Finn, of course, Lamplighter, Newquist, Lapointe, and I've actually read some of Michael Gallagher's stuff as well. It was good. So I'm excited to jump into this. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to talk about. We mentioned briefly some of the stuff from the Silence and Star song that we did. This sort of genre, I guess, is one that I've enjoyed a lot, and I've reviewed some other stuff. Declan Finn's St. Tommy series is, of course, the one that most people jump to. But if you enjoy shooting demons in the face, right? Uriel's Revenge by David Room, who is my husband. And then sort of kind of adjacent, I would say, to this, it would be like weird fiction, like William Jeffrey Rankin's stuff. This is his most recent one, The Horror of Miss Vale Hall. And then I've also read and reviewed Let Sleeping Gods Lie by David J. West. So I encourage you guys to check those out if this is a genre you enjoy.
If I could put one in the chamber as well, B.P. McCoppin, the Book of Oliver,
Nice.
or sorry, the Record of the Paladins. The Book of Oliver is the first one in the series that I've read so far, and I really, really enjoyed it. I've done a video review that you can check out on caveofthecross.com to plug my own stuff there. But there's a scene in the diner scene, and again, it's old me, old man Patrick loves the in between the bloody fiction portion. I just want a good father son moment, and he gives me one right off the bat, and it's nice because you have the old man training the young kid out of the orphanage, and there's no beating, there's no like gratuitous violence for the sake of hating who you're supposed to like view as a father figure. So it was amazing. Again, the subversion of the subversion is the subversion. So I enjoyed that one. So I'll plug his stuff there.
Nice. Okay, An Exorcism for the Demon by Daniel Humphreys. I have not read anything by him before. This one is like an urban fantasy, sort of in the spirit of like the Dresden Files.
Yeah.
Main character is Paxton Locke, a wizard who can be hired for exorcisms via Craigslist. And
a little dated in
I guess there are 7 books in the Paxton Locke series, so that is context.
Right. Yeah, he's a character that shows up in those as well.
Yeah. So for this story, he meets his client, whose name is Ray Ramsey. He is wearing a hat with the DePaul Blue Demons mascot, which...
Subtlety.
Yes.
Subtlety. It's a short story. We need to get in. We need to do our thing. We need to get out. That's what we're here for.
Yep. They meet in a diner, and Ray seems too calm. But after feeling him out a little bit, Paxton decides to go with him to his haunted house. When he calls the ghosts to him, which is something that he can do, there are just way more than he expected. And then he gets hit on the back of the head and loses consciousness.
Yeah, so pretty much right from here, after he wakes up, is where I have a tick.
Okay. He wakes up locked in the dark basement, and he talks to Ray via the intercom. Turns out Ray is a serial killer. Basement is full of his trophies. Thus the ghost problem.
Right. Again, the thing that goes bump in the night is the humans, and yeah.
Yes.
Uh, there's the chapter the section break for the three dots where he wakes up and he says, "Great, his house is haunted and he kidnaps me." He then goes on to say, "The joke was on Ray, though. I could do a hell of a lot more than tell Ghost to move along. I just didn't advertise the other stuff. If he thought he was going to keep me captive, he had another thing coming."
Ah,
This line is input way too soon. I listen, Michael Caine's not here. I'm a reader. I'm not an author. I've never even attempted to write a book. I don't want to. I want to critique other people's work and pay people to allow me to do so. I will critique this. This happens way too soon. This needs to be. This is not foreshadowing. This is just revealing your hand. Way too soon. Way too soon.
yes, I agree. It's short story, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yep.
there's
Yep.
a little
Absolutely.
bit of an excuse, but it's telling about the character instead of showing in a way that is uh giving too much away, right? Like if there was a more of a hint than a outright saying I'm way more powerful.
Right.
uh
He starts the story off with a James Bond little trope there of like, call me, what was it? Call me Locke, Paxton Locke, licensed
mhm,
as a spell. So it's not like we know, at least a single point reader not put into his stories before. I don't know anything about him or his powers.
mhm,
Um, so it's not like Q. I've seen the scene with Q giving James Bond the wristwatch, the pen, the thing that I know he's going to use to get out of it. One could maybe call it a Chekhov's gun, if you will. Uh, Q gives you a thing, you're going to use it in the field, and
yeah,
if not, we're all going to be mad. And so if I don't know anything about his powers or anything, but this would have been a nice reveal, at least after a little bit of waking up. But this is an immediate wake up, scratch the back of my head. Oh man, I can't believe this happened. Maybe again, and I'm going to not draw out any tension. This is an instant tension breaker.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. It would have been nice to have a glimpse of the gun. to, to continue with that.
I promise I won't bring it up in every encounter we have with each other. But
Right away, we get kind of a glimpse of some of Paxton's abilities. He tries to do what he calls pushing. He tries to push Ray into letting him go, which is sort of the force. But it doesn't work. Uh, and he suggests that's because of the intercom.
right,
Uh, Ray wants Paxton to get rid of the ghosts. That's why he is there to get rid of the ghosts. It's not that the serial killer kidnapped him to kill him. He legitimately has a ghost problem.
right, and he's sick of the ghost messing with him after he so rudely offed them all.
I think uh, if you were a serial killer and they started showing up at the foot of your bed in the middle of the night, I think you'd be like, okay, so I need to change something.
Maybe don't do it at home. I don't
Pax,
want to give anyone ideas, but
right, right,
that's yeah.
right. Paxton decides to wait until Ray comes down to the basement in person to try to push him again. And we learn also through telling that he has other quote unquote arcane powers such as telekinesis, invisibility, and healing. He heals the back of his head.
Yeah, but the mana cost to him
Right.
is there, which I do like. So I again, I'm not the biggest fantasy person. I think probably the the fans who are okay with me probably aren't okay when I say fantasy is probably on my downward slope of if I must read it, I will. But I need a magic system that makes sense. It has rules. It has limitations, and if it doesn't have a cost, then I need to know why someone's not just doing magic all the time. Why are we walking if I can float all the time?
Yeah.
Um, so here it's costing him like energy.
Mhm.
He grows hungry. It's you know the flashes metabolism type deal, which you know I like that. There's a cost to trying it, to doing it, and to helping. Um, but there's no bar on the side of the screen for us to see that he has to drink the blue juice, not the red juice, because that's of course the the power up, the
Yep.
life points. Yes.
Yeah, the next thing he does is take a nap. As far as tension goes, taking a nap is probably lower on the list of tense things that the main character can do. But it struck my funny bone. When he wakes up, he meets the ghosts, which he describes as not ghosts, but in pseudoscience psychic echo uh, explanation for them. Uh, and there's I think there's just three that he talks about specifically. One of them is pretty bloodthirsty, tries to kill him, but she can't do anything because she's a ghost. Her name is Becky, and she can talk with him. The others are more fragmented. She says that Ray is a monster and a demon. She says, which Paxton dismisses. She helps a bit. She can tell him where Ray is in the house, and she can tell him what's on the other side of the door, but all she says is that it's a basement. Which is limited help. And in sort of in their some of the stuff that he says to her, some of the stuff that he thinks, we just see that Paxton has a lot of confidence in his ability to handle Ray. And again, it's a little bit tension killing.
Yeah, especially um, he kind of makes choices not to do some of his magic,
Hmm.
but it seems, well, why wouldn't you type deal. Um, which maybe the fuller stories go into that a bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a it'd be an interesting like moral take, which I'm assuming we'll get there
Yeah. Yeah.
about that, because I have a parallel to draw to a pop culture reference
What?
that might happen. Yes,
You've never made pop culture references
I haven't,
before.
since it's my one thing. Consumed a lot of media. It's just all up there.
So Paxton starts doing magicy stuff. Telekinesis spell to open the lock, and he gets into a new room, but he's still stuck. I really didn't understand why he was still stuck.
A second door. Yeah,
But he can he not open that one?
the mana points. Like I said.
Um, he debates how to turn the serial killer in. Uh, basically, there's no question that he intends to see justice done here. There's no, oh, do I just escape and save myself? Like he is not just going to get out. He's not just going to help the ghosts move on, but he's going to make sure that the serial killer pays for what he's done in a, I'm going to call the police sort of way.
Right.
Great confidence in the ability of the police to take care of things.
Right.
Uh,
Although if you have hands in jars in the basement, it might be a little bit hard for them to ignore
true.
the. Yeah, but again, this is where the unveiling of the powers could be done, and the tension could build and swell and say, okay, well, he can open a locked door, but it wipes him out. But he can also, manipulate objects, or what he'll eventually get to.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to kind of build on that more, which it does happen here. You kind of understand a little bit more as he goes on, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, he, and this is where we begin to get a glimpse of, I guess, like the moral quandary. Paxton feels conflicted about pushing people. He feels like he's bending them to his will, and uh, when he's thinking about using that ability on Ray, he thinks it was the right thing to do, but was it right? All caps. Uh, so he's afraid of being unable to stop abusing the power if he starts. Um, I think, and that seems to be his, where he's coming from with that fear. Um, Becky says Ray is coming. Uh, Ray takes a very long time to come. And at that point, Paxton decides he's going to try to, quote, get out of this without falling back on what was essentially a real life cheat code. So he uses one of his other arcane powers to set a trap instead, which is like lines of force. Um, that it's like a type of telekinesis, I guess. It was really hard for me to follow.
Yeah.
But his trap works. Ray comes down, gets surprised by the trap, sort of knocked backwards. But when Paxton approaches, he's not, in fact, knocked out, and he grabs him. And then immediately, Paxton jumps to trying to push him. But he can't push him without voice, and Ray is grappling with him and shocks him with a taser, and he can't do it. He can't talk. So he, at some point, Ray drops the taser and is choking him, I think.
Hmm.
And then Paxton uses the telekinesis to steal the taser and gets him off long enough for him to be able to push a single word, which it was stop. Do you have anything that you want to talk about from this section?
Yeah. So the dark forces of manipulating everybody at your sole discretion, at the words of your lips, is just completely washed away with, well, I'm still going to do it. There's there's uh there's not a there's not a scene after this where he's like, kicking him to death, or
Right.
uh, he's making himself tase him until he develops third degree burns, and then he shakes himself out of it, and comes to the realization that, oh, I almost turned to the dark side there. It's just there's no negative side effect here.
Right.
There is my pop culture reference is, there's a villain in Jessica Jones called Kilgrave,
Oh,
um,
I hated that show.
who, yeah, so mostly, but I thought he was a great bad guy, because he is this guy who realizes, no, he's the bad guy, and he's going to do bad guy things, which, why wouldn't you? And so you understand the lengths that he went with the main character and everything like that, because why wouldn't you? And so I don't understand here, even if you're the good guy, why wouldn't you? You know, there's no other than the internal struggle of the main character. There's no, well, you know, this comes from the half demon side in me, or I call upon dark forces get this to happen. This is, you know, in case of emergency, break glass type deal.
Hmm.
Um, a part of my soul, I have to I have to promise half my soul to the devil to do this the one time for an extended period of time. It's just no, I just don't really like it, and I could abuse it. But he seems to be an okay kid who can kind of control everything.
Right. The thing is, I'm sure that in a longer series, right, this kind of thing would make more sense with
Sure.
a character
Yep.
that we were more familiar with, whose idiosyncrasies we had more sympathy for. Uh, but the way it comes off in the short story is a little contrived feeling where it's like, oh, hand wringing. I don't want to be the kind of person that forces people, even if they're bad guys, to do what I tell them to do.
Yeah. Which you could have that. I think that could be a really interesting a character quality of almost being neurotic as a character, of having that be the um, negative effect of the character is just he doesn't want to do it for the sake of uh, the ickiness factor for him being awkward or weird with it, and
Hmm.
something like that. You know, what if all the Jedi weren't cool, suave people that could wear a cloak really well on the mean streets of, you know, Dagobah
Hmm.
or wherever? What if some of them were nerdy teenagers who abused their telekinesis powers by turning off the light switch, or grabbing the Pringles can when it's slightly out of reach rather than standing up? You know, that's the type of force abuse that I can relate to. I
Right.
can see myself in that character. But ordering a serial killer to stop just at the word, and then continue on with what we'll get to towards the conclusion of the story, seems to be like, well, there's no negative there's no negative approach to this.
Yeah. I like it could work too if he had stuck to it instead of jumping to jumping to it so quickly, uh and in trying to use it earlier. If he had gone through that whole like grappling with Ray and then like very nearly died, and at the last second, defaulted to pushing him or something. It
Yeah.
just the way that it plays out, it just seems like he has this conviction that was like a flight of like very very it didn't hold up. Right. It's not inspiring a lot of confidence.
Yeah, shades of death aren't coming over his eyes, and with the final gasp of breath, he says stop, and that puts
Right.
a screeching halt to everything. It's just, I'm getting tased, it hurts. Okay, like I get it, but also
Right. Yeah.
a little tension. And so he does stop.
Yes.
He's fully under his control, and now the ghosts are very happy about it because he can exact their revenge and lead them to full rest, because
It
that's what happens with ghosts.
it it does work, which was another thing because it didn't work through the intercom. I seriously wondered if it would work in person or if it really was just the intercom.
Right.
And because this is Shoot the Devil, I wondered if Ray was going to be possessed and so he wouldn't be able to push him or something. But it just played out just exactly that way, the way that Paxton expected it would. So that was a little bit of a he sends the ghosts on their way. It's very vague, but they definitely go somewhere, even though they were supposedly only echoes.
Right.
There's definitely a departing. So Paxton goes on to push Ray to, when he leaves, like this, it's kind of an elaborate push. We go from one word stop to a sort of detailed confess everything to the police when they get here, like has him go into the room, locks him in there. uh don't tell people about me. Like,
There seems to be a lot of pushing going on here for being wary of
yes.
utilizing. Yeah, there's no grand scheme of like, well, you could just tell them to stay there, surrounded by the severed hands and dead bodies under the floorboards, and just call 911 and be like, "Hey, there's a dude trapped in the room. Also, check the shelves."
Check the basement.
Yeah.
He sees something of himself in Ray, which is kind of an interesting element here. Although it's not quite a, like, there but for the grace of God go I. It's one step short of that, I would say. Said, quote, he'd exerted power over his victims. Was it all that different from what I could do in the end? And Becky had called Ray and Eben, and I'd scoffed at the notion, but who's to say that she was wrong?
This is where I need the scene of him like almost murdering Ray. Like
Sure.
I need him to uh okay. Confession time. Uh there's a scene in Batman v Superman where uh Superman says, "Take care of Martha," and oh, that's my own mom's name, and it gets Batman to stop killing Superman. I kind of like that scene. I kind of enjoy that uh, breaking breaking out of the combat to have a human element to it, and I enjoy that aspect. It would have been nice to have a Martha moment here of uh, this is the toll that the pushing enacts on me, and now I'm looking at Luke going into to the dark forest and cutting off the Vader's face, and it's his own face. Look, if I turn to the dark side, I'm no different than Darth Vader. There's no moment like that.
Right.
There needs to be a beat.
And it's very vague, like morality wise. There's no sense of what makes the exertion of power over others right or wrong. uh like what makes that in and of itself bad. It's just sort of vaguely like, oh, that. And it's so broad too, right? Power over his victims, right? Like, that word victims is carrying a lot of weight there, right?
Well, and especially too, you could have this go the opposite way, although I don't think it would endear us to the hero as much. Um, but you could draw the parallel of our hero doing the same thing that the serial killer did to his victims, and uh, leave him and just leave him there. And he
Die,
could
yeah.
either he can either waste away because no one's telling him to not stop, or you can have the ghosts come in and forever haunt him and drive him mad, and then you can have a divine justice occur there.
Right.
But again, I'm only a reader. This isn't my story, but I could have made it
Right.
way better. I could have made it way better.
Couldn't.
The whole turn yourself into the police, confess everything, go back to your old way after you're sitting in jail, and remember nothing of me. Boy, that's a lot of things that just happens. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem there's no moral qualms or convictions there, and it's why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that with everybody?
Mhm.
You see an armed robbery happening, a bank robbery of a kitten stuck in a tree by bad firemen. Just command people everywhere to stop. This is Death Note, territory of, if you have the Death Note, why wouldn't you write all the bad people in the world, and then your fall from grace comes from playing God that way. Uh, can you fall just a little bit when you utilize it?
Mhm. For me, without as a example that we as readers can see, like you were saying, an outburst of aggression, uh, it just feels like his misgivings are navel gazing and right in the middle of the action. Like this is the wrong time to be having these kinds of hesitations. Just deal with the problem and then go home and think about it then. And then next time you meet a serial killer, try, try it in a different way or something, but like
Stand with
not
your
in the
back
middle.
against the wall. And why wouldn't you tie up the wizard? You knocked him out. Some duct tape? I know you have it.
Overall, I think Paxton is, for this short story, right, is a little overpowered, and it does take a lot of the tension out of it. Uh, Instead of like in like we said, like Chekhov's gun, right? Instead of introducing his powers and then presenting challenges, like here's the gun, but here's reasons why we can't get to it, can't use it, can't reach it, or whatever, right? Like instead we have, here's a problem, and oh, by the way, he has this gun, right? Like so we can solve it. It didn't promote tension.
Right.
There wasn't like the intercom and the taser were like obstacles, but they were like very, very temporary, and they didn't cause him to have to like change his approach. Like his solution never changes, and the only obstacle is his own desire not to do it. So overall, I was a little bit frustrated with the story.
True.
And it's really interesting to me that this is the one that opens the anthology, because it seems like it does some of the things that the foreword was saying that weren't going to happen. Like there isn't an actual literal demon, it's the human. It's the guy, right?
Right.
Um and also we saw that the bad guy isn't always misunderstood or like sympathetic or whatever, and actually feeling, the hero's feeling a lot of like connections between himself and like a serial killer, right? So it wasn't
Yeah.
like a clear cut.
Oh, what if his power would have only worked against like a demon? And he's like, oh, a serial killer has to be manipulated by this demonic force, but there's no demon there, and so then you have him having to utilize other means by which you can have that morality tale of, I looked into the abyss and the abyss looked back type deal.
It's a fine little story. I just it didn't work so well for me. I think I would read more about Paxton. Um, I think some of the bits about his background and
Yeah.
the genre in general are interesting to me, and I think maybe in a longer format, some of the like problems that I find with the short story would be less problems or gone altogether. It I know that when you have an established series, taking a character and making them have like a short adventure where you're like all of their experience and abilities and backstory has to like work.
Right. Right.
So I have a
Yeah.
lot of sympathy.
If you're trying to sell me on this character as a one-off, as almost a prequel to the story that you want me to read, um, y- you have to make them really interesting. In fact, I would point to maybe a few of the inclusions of stories from Periapsis Christmas 1 and 2. There's a few characters in there that are beefed up beefcakes that take swarms and swarms of bad guys, and I mean, it's I'm going to fight to the very last breath, and I really appreciated a story like that, and I wanted to know more. And I've looked at that author, and I went, "Hey, he wrote exactly this character and other things. I want to find out more." I purchased those.
I love those stories so much. Those are satisfying.
When so I've never been scared of a story. I've never, it's hard to keep go along and go, like I understand dread and everything, but it's not. I don't need jump scares, but the tension of a book is really hard when you can just put it down and talk to your kid for 5 minutes and then
Right,
pick it
right.
back up. But a story like that where it almost leaves you breathless along with the hero is always a cool power to have
Yeah.
as an author. Yeah. Again, I'll say this: the story didn't hate me. It seems to know a character. The story might not have been for us for this one, but it it didn't lecture me towards towards anything.
Right. Right. I as a reader am not being guilt tripped for pushing other people into doing
Right.
what I wanted them to
Yeah.
do. So win. And it took me to a place I would enjoy reading more about a a wizard that you can hire on Craigslist.
Might have to explain what Craigslist was, and then Craigslist is where you would find the serial killer, right? Like that's why Craigslist kind of closed down, was because there was so many people killing people on Craigslist.
Seriously? So, shoot the devil. We encourage you, if this sounded interesting to you, this story, to pick up the anthology, to check out other things by Daniel Humphreys, particularly the Paxton Locke series. And if you guys have thoughts, if you've read this before, or if you are inspired by our discussion, feel free to comment below, and we will continue reading through this. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you,
And
Katie.
thank you, everybody, for watching. Guys, have a great day.